Sports Illustrated. Ross, if I were your boss, I would give you some time off. You've been churning out so much compelling content. I would say you deserve some time off, but you can't take it just quite yet because we have no idea what is going to emerge at SEC meetings in Destin, and you probably got to work that before you take any time off. What's up, my man?
Yeah, I do. I'll be in Destin, but it's not the worst place to be in the world, Destin, Florida, in May.
You are not wrong. Let's start with, I guess, the piece that came out earlier this week with there was a lot of content there, but I thought the scheduling model was the most interesting piece of this. The fact that there seems to be a pretty significant divide between the 8-team model and the 9-team model, the 8-team model being 1 permanent and 7 rotating opponents, the 9-team model being 3 and 6. Where does this thing finish? Even if it is dead split right down the middle, you have a hunch as to where it finishes?
Yeah, it does kind of feel like it is pretty split down the middle. Like a lot of things in the league with a lot of legislation, as you know, Richard, the league is really split into 2 halves, kind of the haves and the have-nots, and it's a pretty good delineation line between them as far as, their budgets and their historic kind of athletic success. And that's where they're split. I think the top of the league would like a 9-game schedule. I think the bottom of the league would like an 8-game schedule. Normally, as you know, the big boys usually get their way. And I do believe that probably is what happens here. But I don't think that it's anywhere near done. I think there is going to be some probably serious discussion on it in Destin, and it has been, from what I've heard, a pretty passionate debate, I think, among the athletic directors. But I think in the end, probably, if it's as split as they are, as I'm led to believe, I think what happens in the end probably is that Greg Sankey probably gets involved a little bit and nudges some school presidents in a certain direction, maybe, and that's maybe how it gets resolved, or maybe he doesn't have to get involved, and maybe 2 or 3 ADs kind of come over to one side, and you have 11 votes or whatever, 10 votes for one model or not. But a lot of things in the league have gone toward the big boys, what they want to do, the top half of the league, and you probably feel like that's where it's headed.
Ross, when you say that it's split right now, obviously athletics directors are representing, in a lot of cases, their football coaches. So are these firmly held beliefs by the ADs, or are these beliefs held by the ADs based on what their football coach is telling them, oh, we got to have this? And maybe I'm not asking that well. Is there a scenario where you've got ADs that are like, yeah, look, it really probably makes more sense to go to 9 and we're okay with that, but I got to stick up for my guy and he desperately wants it to be 8 instead of 9?
Well, I think there's some truth to that, that ADs are just kind of representing the beliefs and feelings of their football coaches. However, I think there probably is quite a bit number of ADs who, at the bottom half of the league, who agree with their football coaches and want 8 games because they want that other non-conference win. They want that extra win, and they need that extra win more than maybe the top half of the league. So that's one reason I think that some of them could also, feel the same as their coaches do. Another issue is that even though it would probably add value to the league, adding a game to everybody's schedule, you have more matchups, bigger matchups, bigger season ticket packages, more butts in seats, more eyes on the TV. You don't get any more money from TV. The media rights deal, unless it's going to be renegotiated, doesn't have a clause in there where it gives you more for more inventory. So that's something also that I've heard argued. Why would we increase if we can't get any more money from the TV deal. So, but to get back to your question, I do believe that some ADs also agree with their coaches, but I also think that all of them probably are representing the stance of their coaches.
I guess moving forward to the piece that we talked about a lot yesterday that you wrote, basically a Q&A with, we talked about normally you write stories, but for this, it made sense to just go Q&A with your questions to Lane Kiffin and his answers in this conversation. And I thought it was really, really fascinating. We talk all the time about the fact that, coaches believe one thing privately, but they say something else publicly, and you just don't get that with Lane Kiffin. He tells you what he thinks, and he doesn't really care who that bothers. Was Lane Kiffin, in your mind, actually representative of what most coaches think, just most aren't willing to say it?
I think a lot of what Lane said has been muttered privately and whispered a lot among coaches and athletic directors. So I think most of what he said, there's some things that probably coaches don't agree with him on, where he's coming maybe more out of left field the way he thinks. Like for instance, he said all of he doesn't, some schools and some school collectives, in listening to their coach, are paying players NIL salaries that are basically even across the board. Everybody's getting $10,000, everybody's getting $50,000, everybody gets the same. He doesn't believe that's how it should be. And I think that probably is something that a lot of coaches disagree with. A lot of coaches, to avoid locker room issues, want collectives to pay their players equally. Everybody kind of gets the same cut. So that's something that probably Lane is on an island on somewhat. But a lot of the other stuff is stuff that's just, been whispered or privately talked about for a while. And Lane just said, what the heck, time to speak on the record about this. I'm glad he chose me to do it. And like you said, usually I would write stories. But, this one, as I was transcribing, this one was one where I just wanted to put his words down and let him do the talking.
Ross Dellenger, Sports Illustrated, visiting with us on the Farm Bureau phone line. I'm trying to juxtapose. Lane Kiffin clearly holds Nick Saban in very, very high regard. And his comments were, Nick Saban never going to retire. They've got all the advantages in the world, and now they've got more. And yet I've actually heard some people behind the scenes who I think would say that Alabama is kind of far behind in the NIL game. Not to say that they can't catch up, not to say that they can't get it all rolling and capitalize on their success on the field, but that Alabama currently is not in the same place that Georgia is, that Texas A&M is, that Texas is. Have you heard that? Do you believe that to be true, or is that maybe a little off?
Well, I think there's some truth to that, and I think what happened last week probably is evidence of that. It was kind of overshadowed during the whole Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher spat. Something overshadowed was that Nick Saban was speaking in Birmingham in front of business people, donors, Alabama donors, and boosters.
Right.
And I think he was just using Deion Sanders and Jimbo Fisher as using them as a tool to try to do what a lot of coaches are trying to do, Lane included, and that is rally his boosters and donors to this cause and make them realize if we don't get in the game, we're going to get left behind. And so I think there is some truth to that. That's why, there was a lot of surprising things in what Lane said, but one of them was that he thinks that Alabama has this big advantage. And maybe they will, as you mentioned, but certainly they have been lapped early on this NIL by places like A&M and Miami and you mentioned Georgia and probably Tennessee too.
Last thing for you, you've only got a minute left. I wish we had 20 more minutes to talk about this. Can you give me a rational reason as to why Jimbo is pushing back so hard on the idea that NIL was a big part of their signing class as opposed to embracing it?
Yeah, I wish I could. I don't understand, and I'm going to frequent. I'm going to visit College Station later this summer, and I'll be interested to ask that because I don't understand why you just don't lean into it at this point. It's virtually legal, basically, and so yeah. I mean, I don't know why you just don't kind of lean into it, and the way he's fighting it is just kind of weird to me. But
yeah.
that's him.
He is